Revolution Radio.
Incoming message.
Hello? I can't hear you, but you can hear me, right?
We interrupt to bring you this.
We've hijacked your daily dose of regurgitated news to bring you Navigating the Truth. Brace yourself, listeners, as you're about to enter a world where the narrative is no longer masqueraded as the truth. A world where the conspiracies of yesterday's translate into the truths of today.
Are you listening?
The veils covering the truth are lifting, and understandings once suppressed are finally being revealed. Will you be ready? And now, your host and navigator through these circles of lies, the host of Navigating the Truth, Caroline Bell Tumblety.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Navigating the Truth. And you're listening on Revolution Radio. I am in Studio A. And if you go to revolution.radio to the website, there's donate buttons. There's different buttons. There's a Patreon. There's a donate. You can also write a check. The schedule and the archives are all at the top, so you can kind of navigate the website. We are 100% listener supported, so any donations that you can give to the station is greatly appreciated. If it wasn't for the listeners, we would not be on the air. And a big thank you to all the hosts and the management team behind the scene. And let's see, so where are we? We are March 6th. It's noontime in New York, and it's just after 5 here in Scotland. It has been overcast for most of the day with, I would say, light rain. But about 51, like, it wasn't cold. It was quite, it was okay. It was temperate. And I thought what I would do, when I hosted Navigating the Truth on KCOR, I had interviewed a bunch of different people. Some of them, the listeners of Revolution Radio would have been familiar with them. But there were some that I don't know if they've ever been on Revolution Radio. So one of the interviews I had done, and I believe it was around March 5th, so it's about 2 years ago, March 5th, 2023, and it was Robert Waggoner. Now, I had read his books. His first book that I read came out in 2009, and the name of the book was Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. It was a great book. And the second book he wrote, it was a collaboration. It was Robert Waggoner and Caroline McCready, and it was Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple. And when I interviewed him, like what I would do when I was at KCOR is I would take like the archive, but I would only use like 30 minutes of the archive, and I would convert it into like a YouTube video. And I would just post it up with the links to KCR radio, like trying to direct the traffic back to the radio station. But I always had like the full interview and kind of kept it like in my own archives. And so what I thought I would do is, as I say, the video is up on YouTube, and it's Caroline Bell Tumblety YouTube, and it would be Robert Waggoner, and it was March 5th, 2023. There's only 30 minutes of it. So what I thought I would do was I would play the whole thing. So I kind of have the archive ready, and there will be breaks in it because, as I recall, on KCOR I would have a break every half an hour. And what I will try to do is I will try to like I'll be listening to it with the listeners, and I'll try to stop it like and kind of skip by the ads like as best I can. But yeah, so this is Robert Waggoner, and he's going to be talking all about lucid dreaming. So let me see here. I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to play it. And hopefully it's going to work. To Navigating the Truth, I am your host, Caroline Bell Tumblety, and today is Sunday, March 5th. And we are just rolling right through the year here. And I want to thank all the listeners out there who have decided to join us today. Thank you very much for listening in. On with the show. So today I have a really, really special guest. I'm so excited about this. I have read his books and I have really, really found him inspirational. His name is Robert Waggoner, and he wrote the acclaimed book Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, now in its 10th printing, and he co-authored Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple with Caroline McCready. Both books are in Audible, Kindle and CD MP3. His books have been translated into French, German, Chinese, Korean, Czech, Finnish and other languages. A past president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, IASD, Robert serves as co-editor of the online magazine The Lucid Dreaming Experience, which I highly recommend. I think it's a quarterly magazine, and you can also share your dreams on there. There's a lot of information on this magazine. It's really worth the subscription. Just sign up for it. Let's see. A lucid dreamer since 1975. He has logged more than 1,000 dreams, lucid dreams. Robert frequently speaks on the science and practice of lucid dreaming at international dream conferences, workshops, and college classrooms. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Robert Waggoner. Welcome, Robert. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Caroline. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to just jump right in there. How did you get involved with lucid dreaming?
So if you can imagine this, back in 1975, I was a junior in high school, and I was reading a book by Carlos Castaneda called Journey to Ixtlan. And so in this book, his shamanic teacher, Don Juan, tells him to find his hands in the dream state and become aware of dreaming. And I was reading this and thought, what? You can become aware within a dream? And so there wasn't really a practice, so I just created a practice, and within 3 nights I had my first lucid dream.
Wow. You know, I had a similar experience. It was Don Juan, the Carlos Castaneda book, and that's exactly how I had my first dream. I tripped over a fence, and when I tripped over the fence in the dream, I looked at my hands. And I became conscious. Yeah.
Right. So that introduced me to lucid dreaming, and I was amazed. I just had a really powerful first lucid dream, and so then I was just hooked on the practice.
So, you also go into the Tibetan, right? The dream yoga. Is it the dream yoga?
Right. So one of the beautiful things about lucid dreaming is that it's been scientifically validated since 1980, but for the thousands of years prior to that, for 2,000 years, it's been part of Buddhist dream yoga practice. So they use lucid dreaming and they connect it with Buddhist philosophy, and they have a very deep practice called Buddhist dream yoga. For 1,000 years, it's been practiced in Sufism and mystical Islam. It's also been part of native shamanic traditions all around the world for many thousands of years. So it's kind of neat that this was a spiritual practice that people didn't really understand, but then the scientific evidence came out and people go, oh, this is really a legitimate thing. And so it has incredibly deep roots.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So it is. I also subscribe to the magazine, and I always find that full of things that I wouldn't even think of. Like what to do when you find yourself actually awake and aware in a dream. So to go back to you go into it in 1975, and did you study at all with anybody who was teaching the art of dreaming?
Not really. That was kind of the beautiful part of it. I let lucid dreaming teach me. So I just learned by doing. I began this practice of looking at my hands before I'd go to sleep and telling myself, tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And then in the middle of the night, my hands might pop right in front of my face, and I go, oh my God, I'm dreaming. What I just began to learn by doing, by being consciously aware, seeing what worked, what didn't work, and I just kept going deeper and deeper. I knew a little bit from reading the Castaneda books of what Don Juan said, things to be on the lookout for. I was kind of a self-taught lucid dreamer, and I let lucid dreaming teach me how to be a better lucid dreamer.
That's wonderful. So it's all your own experience here, which is really, really, really wonderful. For the listeners who are not really familiar with the term lucid dreaming, could you go into a little more detail about what it really actually is?
Yeah, so a lucid dream is any dream in which you realize within the dream that, hey, I'm dreaming this. This is a dream. So you know within the dream it's a dream. I had a spontaneous lucid dream when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, which kind of illustrates how lucid dreaming works. So think that you're in this dream. So I'm in this dream, but I don't realize it's a dream. I think I'm in real reality. I'm at the public library looking at books, and all of a sudden, here comes a little Tyrannosaurus Rex dinosaur walking through the book stacks. And even at age 10 or 11 there, I thought, wait a second, this isn't right. Dinosaurs are extinct. How can there be a dinosaur here in the public library? And then it occurred to me, I have to be dreaming. This is a dream. And so once I had that thought, I realized, well, boy, if this is a dream, then I can tell myself to wake up, and I'll wake up. And so I told myself to wake up, and I woke up, and that was my very first spontaneous lucid dream as a young guy, but I never realized the potential. Because in most of our dreams, we just go along with whatever happens. Each night we have normally about 5 segments of dreaming. We spend about 2 hours and 20 minutes in the dream state each night if we sleep for 8 hours. And so all of us have lots of dreams all the time, but becoming lucidly aware is when you realize, wait, there's something wrong, something's not right here, and the only explanation is this is a dream.
Well, yeah, I've had a few lucid dreams in my lifetime, and what struck me about them was how much realer it seemed. Everything just became really, really vibrant.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we become lucidly aware, it's kind of amazing to compare the lucid dream reality to waking reality. And so in the lucid dream reality, sometimes things do seem much more vibrant. It seems more light and alive. Sometimes the colors seem incredibly vivid and all of that. But just that you have a vivid dream isn't enough. You have to realize, wait a second, this is a dream. I know I'm dreaming this. But you're right. Sometimes you do have that sense of kind of supercharged, super energetic type dream.
Yeah. And do you connect, people describe sleep paralysis. Would you say that that's a primer? I know there's a lot of fear around the experience of the sleep paralysis, but by mastering my own fear when that would happen, I was actually able to slip out, get myself out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So sleep paralysis, just for everyone listening, that's that occasional event where you feel like you've woken up and you're laying there in bed, but your body won't move. And sometimes you might feel like something sitting on your chest, or if you get into a fearful mindset, then you might think, oh, there's a burglar in my room or whatever. So sleep paralysis is kind of a funny state where your mind is awake, but your body's asleep. Now, one of the major scientific researchers in lucid dreaming, Stephen LaBerge, he said that what he thinks happens is that in normal dreams, we're kind of basically functionally paralyzed. I mean, we're laying there in bed, or we normally have rapid eye movement. We have this incredible dream happening inside of our head, but our body is basically fundamentally paralyzed. And so what he thinks is sometimes you wake up from a dream, but your body hasn't gotten the notice that, hey, we're awake now, so allow yourself to move and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Sleep paralysis can lead to regular lucid dreams if you know how. For most people, just want to get the heck out of sleep paralysis. They don't like that feeling. They don't like sitting there immobile, unable to move. Mm-hmm. And also you have to be careful not to get into a fearful mode, because otherwise you'll kind of hallucinate fearful imagery. But if you relax and do something like this, like in the sleep paralysis state, just imagine that you're flying over a nearby park or a nearby lake. Just keep imagining that. And then oftentimes suddenly you'll find yourself flying over a nearby park or lake, and you'll realize, hey, this is a lucid dream. I've shifted from sleep paralysis into a lucid dream. But I'll tell you, in my life, I've had more than 1,000 lucid dreams. But in terms of sleep paralysis, boy, I've maybe had sleep paralysis 3 or 4 times. So
wow, that's great.
Not very often at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder, like, if it has to do with maybe the level of stress that a person might be experiencing, because the sleep paralysis is not something that has happened to me like regular. It's happened to me enough times where I remember it, and one of the times that it happened, I faced my fear and I found myself slipped out, and I was just like walked right through the wall and realized I was dreaming.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, kind of coming to terms with the fear of it, and because it is a strange feeling to be immobile.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, the first thing I realized that if I could convince myself to move my little finger or twitch my toe, normally that would break the sleep paralysis spell and I could wake up. But then I read a book by Ryan Hurd called Sleep Paralysis, and that's where he suggested this idea that, in the sleep paralysis state, just relax, use your imagination to imagine yourself flying over a nearby park or whatever. And if you focus and concentrate your energy on that, then you'll switch over into a lucid dream and find yourself flying over a nearby park. Yeah.
So, how about you give us a little more insight to the world of lucid dreaming? Like, we encounter people, like all kinds of beings. Like, what is your take on it all?
It's first, one thing I want to say about lucid dreaming is it does take a little bit of practice, and so you have to realize that if you're getting on the lucid dreaming path, first you want to have good dream recall, because if you're not recalling your dreams, then you're going to have a difficult time even recalling the times you become lucidly aware. So you want to have good dream recall. And then it helps to have a practice that you do every day or every night before you go to sleep in order to kind of help induce a lucid dream. For me in the early days, it was looking at my hands before I'd go to sleep and telling myself, tonight my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And what would happen, I'd be in a dream and I might be climbing a ladder and see my hand and go, wait a second, my hand, this is a dream. So that's kind of the practice that I use to get started. But the beautiful thing is, once you're consciously aware within the dream state, then it's like this open platform of all the things that you can do, especially if you know how to do it. And so, like, one thing, we're all kind of social creatures, and so a lot of us like to talk to dream figures. And one funny thing is a lot of lucid dreamers report, just like I experienced, if you go up to a dream figure and say, hey, do you know I'm dreaming you? Oftentimes they'll say something like, how do you know I'm not dreaming you?
Yeah.
Or they'll look down at the ground like you're the biggest idiot in the lucid dream and all. So it's much better, I learned over time, to ask a dream figure, who are you? Or what do you represent? Because sometimes the dream figure will tell you exactly what it represents. And this is really good if you might become lucid in kind of a nightmare scenario, because something's chasing you and you remember, oh, this is that recurring nightmare. Oh, that means I'm dreaming right now. If you become lucidly aware at that moment, then you can turn and face the thing, knowing it's a dream figure, and say, who are you? Or what do you want? And oftentimes people are stunned by what they learned and what they hear. And then they know what it is that's chasing them, what they're connected to there. But with that knowledge, then you can just do remarkable things and go from there. So there's a lot of exploring you can do, interacting with dream figures. You can fly around like Superman. You can go through walls. You can explore to your heart's content. But after a while, you begin to realize that there's even more going on.
Yeah.
And so that's one reason I called my first book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, is after 10 years of lucid dreaming, I realized that you can ignore all the dream figures and ignore the dream setting and just ask a question of the dream, or maybe it's the unconscious mind or the inner self. You can just look up and say, hey, dream, show me something important for me to see. And then the entire lucid dream will change, or maybe something new will appear. But realizing that there's a responsive inner awareness, I think that's really what sent my lucid dreaming career into overdrive.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, because it's not what we're being told, like dreams are kind of passed off as like just something we do, when we sleep.
Right. Yeah, a number of scientists, especially 30 or 40 years ago, before the evidence for lucid dreaming came out, I mean, they would call dreams the junk of the mind. They would call dreams the mind in psychosis, and they were just so negative and derogatory about dreaming, which everybody does every night. And so it's kind of great to have lucid dreaming come along, because then you're consciously aware within the dream. You can do personal experiments, and you can also do scientific experiments as well. And so there's been a lot of scientific experiments that have been done when the person is consciously aware within the dream state. And so that's the beauty of it. And then you have the whole spiritual aspect of it that you can take enormously deep. So it's really a profound state of awareness.
Absolutely. The idea that somebody can actually come up with something in science, my mind just starts going doctors, nurses, everybody going in there for solutions, for help, scientists, archaeologists even, it's limitless, really, because it is, for me, some of the deepest learnings I have experienced have happened there. Yeah.
Yeah. I tell people, because sometimes people haven't had lucid dreams, and so they say, well, what's the value? And I said, well, look, when you're consciously aware within a dream, if you know how, then you can access your inner creativity. And sometimes that creativity just comes in bucket loads. You can't believe how creative your inner awareness is. Also, you can use lucid dreaming for emotional healing. Already, some therapists use it to help people who have recurring nightmares from PTSD. And then other lucid dreamers have used it to resolve phobias, to deal with their anxiety, to see how the mind works and take care of that and other things. Then some lucid dreamers report using lucid dreaming to heal the physical body, or sometimes to get inner advice on how to heal. And so that's really another fascinating area. But for me, I think when I began to interact with this awareness behind the dream, this responsive inner awareness, that was one thing that really blew my mind. And then when I started to do some spiritual practices in lucid dream, like meditate or do things like that, or ask to have spiritual experiences, then when that began to happen, it was like, whoa, this is really incredibly deep. So again, it's an open platform. Wherever you are, you can explore it, and it's truly a phenomenal state of awareness.
Absolutely. Like when you say the awareness, that there is an awareness there inside the dreams, what do you think that is? I mean, is that an aspect to you? Like, what do you think it is?
Well, one thing that I mentioned in my first book, Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self, is that Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, he said that maybe all of us have a type of inner ego or inner self, and that if someone could show that it had these qualities like perception and judgment and reflection and creativity, and he listed about a dozen things, if somebody could show that our inner awareness had that, then we might actually have an inner self of a kind. And that's what I mentioned in the first part of my book. And I bring up a bunch of lucid dreams that show that this inner awareness, sometimes it tells you, you'll ask to have an experience, and it tells you you're not ready.
Yeah.
Come back when you're more focused. And so that means it has judgment, it has reflection, it kind of knows where you're at. So I think what we're dealing with is what I would call the inner self.
The inner self.
And I think everyone should be excited about that, the idea of directly interacting with the inner self in a lucid state.
Absolutely. We're coming up on a break right here, and anyone wants to have a question for Robert? So that was actually the first part of the interview, and it's actually kind of cool listening to it. He's a really, really interesting full of knowledge as far as like lucid dreaming and navigating that world. He also has, you can find him on Facebook, and he's quite a following there. I've noticed that in the past, I would say maybe a year and a half, 2 years, he's been doing workshops for quite some time, but he's been adding like children's workshops, which I think is really, really good. And he seems to be collaborating with a bunch of different people. So it's all very, very interesting. And I'm going to see if I can just skip by the ads, and we'll go back to the interview. So let me see. I think the ad ran for about maybe two minutes. All right, let's see. Nope, that was too soon. All right, let's see. Yeah.
Eventually, you will lose control of that power and the whole world will suffer.
Come partake in the awakening by calling the show at 702-425-9230. Narratives and Uncovering the Truth with your host of Navigating the Truth, Caroline Bell Tumblety. Caroline Bell Tumblety.
Hi, welcome back to Navigating the Truth, and I am your host, Caroline Bell Tumblety, and I have a wonderful guest with us today. I have Robert Waggoner, and Robert Waggoner is an author, speaker, workshop giver. He is an expert on lucid dreaming, and welcome, Robert. Welcome back.
Thanks, happy to be here.
And we were talking through the break, like what direction to go in. And you were saying that maybe focus on like some of the beings that we might encounter during our lucid dreams. And so I thought maybe I would share like a lucid dream that I had. I had this dream quite a while ago, maybe over 20 years ago. And what it was my friend had passed away. And I had I knew that I would be able to find her. Like I knew that I had the ability to do that. And I had set myself up with a whole focusing, and I found myself in a lucid dream where I was, it was like a convalescence home or a hospital. And when I got there, there was a woman who was dressed like a nurse. Something about her made me think maybe she wasn't a nurse, but I was basically saying, I want to see my friend. And they were like, no. She was actually really surprised to see me and told me that I shouldn't be there and that it would only upset my friend because she was in like an in-between space where she was not really aware that she was dead, that it would only confuse her to see me. So she pretty much talked me out of what I was going to do, which was actually go and speak to my friend. And she said I could see her through a window, but I wasn't allowed to speak to her. And it was, I could see her sitting in the garden, and she was in a wheelchair. And she already looked better than the last time that I had seen her. But yeah, that was the lucid dream I had. Like I was not a happy camper.
I think deceased dream figures are probably the times when we're most likely to become lucidly aware, because we'll find ourselves in the dream. We'll think it's real, but all of a sudden we see Aunt Ellen, and we think, wait a second, she passed away 5 years ago. How can this be? And I must be dreaming. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to explore the nature of that dream figure. Because when I think about it, at that point, I'm not exactly sure, am I dealing with a dream figure, which is a projection of my own mind, or am I dealing with something else, the spiritual essence of someone who's come to visit me? And so I always encourage lucid dreamers, you've got to ask some questions. And so I'll give you an example of this. In my own life, 20-some years ago, my dad passed away. And so I thought, I'll wait a few months and try to find him in a lucid dream. And so I became lucidly aware, and I remembered that I wanted to find my father, my deceased father. And all of a sudden, all of the dream figures in that lucid dream begged me not to do it. They told me it wasn't time, that it wasn't time. And so I thought, maybe my dad hasn't acclimated to being dead yet, or maybe he's being, taught or something. I don't know. But I made all the dream figures, then explained all the symbolism in the dream. I just pointed at everything and made them tell me, why is that symbol there? So then when I woke up, I thought, okay, I'm just going to wait until my father comes to me. If my father wants to come to me, that'd be great. And so it was about 3 years later, I see this gold ladder, and coming down the gold ladder is my dad.
Oh, wow.
And I immediately think, wait a second, Dad's dead. How can this be? Oh, this is a dream. I'm dreaming this. And so, but then my rational mind got going, and I thought, well, wait a second. Is this my dad as a dream figure, as a projection of my mind, as a symbol? Or is this my dad as someone aware in the after-death state? And so he comes down to me, and we greet each other, and I ask him a question. I say, hey, Dad, you're from the land of the dead. When do you think Mom's going to pass away? And he looked at me, and he said, oh, probably in 2 to 6 years. I said, of what? And he said, a heart condition. And that really surprised me because my mom had never had any heart trouble. And then I asked him one more question, and he responded. And then he told me, look, you've got to be quiet because I've come to tell you things. And he spent the next 10 minutes telling me things about the family that he wanted me to understand. And so I did my best to remember everything, and I woke up and wrote it down in my dream journal. And so it was about 23 months and a week later, my mom went to the hospital and almost died of a heart condition. And then about 3 years after that, she went back to the hospital and again almost died of a heart condition. This time it was caused by a prescription drug that they had determined was actually harming people's hearts and all. But she made it through that 2 to 6 year period. and all it. And but the other interesting thing. So what I'm trying to get across here is, just because you see a deceased dream figure, sometimes it can just be a symbol of your grief, a symbol of your missing and memories and all that kind of stuff. But to your lucid dream, Carolyn, where you went to find your friend who was deceased, in my first book, I have an entire chapter on interacting with the deceased in lucid dreams. And a good friend of mine, Ed Kellogg, just a wonderful lucid dreamer, he decided to do this. Whenever he had an acquaintance or a friend pass away, he'd wait a while, and then in a lucid dream, he would try to find them. And oftentimes in the lucid dream, he would learn things about them. And then when he woke up, he could share the information with the family if they wanted to have it hear his lucid dream. And oftentimes they would tell him, "Oh, you don't know this, but that's exactly how he was dressed. You know, he would dress when he was 20 years old. And, oh, you don't know this, but those were his exact hobbies."
Wow.
And so these were the things. But sometimes he would encounter the deceased person. He's lucidly aware, of course, and they would still be in a hospital or a convalescent home. And oftentimes, Ed would try to politely get across to them that they've passed over, and so they don't have to, stay in a convalescent home anymore, that they exist in the after-death state. And sometimes that was greeted with, thoughtfulness and all, but other times the deceased told him to go away, and they didn't want to hear anymore. And so it does make me wonder if when people pass that they go through a period of kind of adjusting to the new environment, and that's possibly why you weren't allowed to see your friend.
Yeah, and I wish your book would have been available way back then, and I could have read it, because then maybe I wouldn't have been so arrogant, like I would have been a little more respectful. But as you say, like, grief is it's an interesting emotion, and it looks like we have a question here from Brenda, and it says, "Can your guest speak on having lucid dreams, and then sometimes months later I get deja vu, and what I experienced in my dream months ago has come true? Is this normal?"
Right. So thanks for the question. That does happen on occasion. For example, in my book, I have some examples. So what would happen, I'd find myself in my hometown. I'd be driving around with one of my brothers or my father or something. And then would get to a part of town, and where there should have been houses, now there's a parking lot. And I'd become lucidly aware, because I'm thinking, our hometown doesn't have a parking lot there. But then, like Brenda says in her question, then 3 years later, I'd be back home in my hometown, and I'd drive by the place where I had that lucid dream and became lucidly aware when I saw the parking lot. And what's there? A parking lot.
Wow.
Just like what I had dreamt about 3 years earlier. And so that's happened a few times. It's kind of like you say, it's kind of a deja vu kind of moment when you go, wait a second, how can this be? I saw this in a lucid dream, and now it's here in waking physical reality. So that happens on occasion, but that's one reason why I always encourage people to keep good dream notes or a good dream journal, because then you can go back to that exact lucid dream and show it to others and make your case or have the evidence for it.
Yeah. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you for your question. And could we talk a little more about the beings that we encounter?
Right. So one thing I try to get across in my books, because of all my lucid dreams, is that all dream figures are not created equal. Some dream figures are very responsive and seem to act with their own intentional behavior and all that. but other dream figures just seem empty and hollow. And in fact, in my book, I suggest that if you want to do an experiment, if you're in a group of dream figures and you're lucidly aware, you can announce, now all thought forms, all things that are there, it's just thoughts of my mind, can disappear. And sometimes all the dream figures will disappear. Sometimes 80% of them will disappear. And the 20% remaining kind of look at you like, didn't you realize that we were different than all those other kind of cast of characters? and so there's all kinds of dream figures out there. But I would say the ones that I think a person should pay attention to, first, like we talked earlier, if you ever see a deceased relative, what I would do is ask it, what do you have to tell me? Because if they appear, normally it's for a reason. It's just not, today's Tuesday and here I am. Normally they'll have something to say. And oftentimes it'll have to do with the family, something going to happen in the family, or they want you to understand something in that kind of vein. But besides deceased dream figures, occasionally you'll have very intelligent dream figures. And for me, they oftentimes appear in robes, so they're wearing a robe, and sometimes they'll ask me a question that really makes me think, and sometimes they've helped me become lucidly aware by asking me questions like, isn't it strange? How did you get here? And I'll look around and think, boy, how did I get here? Oh, this is a dream. I'm dreaming this. So there's all those kind of dream figures and others. I mean, you can even interact with, in a lucid dream, with talking animals, all sorts of things. So it's a wide level of characters that you can encounter in a lucid dream.
Yeah. It's like no limits really on what you can encounter. I have a question. Is there any beings, is there any times that we find ourselves in a realm where we really shouldn't be interacting?
Well, so I found a few lucid dreams. Like one time I met this woman who was really big on this figure. Is it Saint Germain? Saint Germain? Saint Germain?
Yep.
And so when I think of Saint Germain, I think of this neighborhood in Paris. I don't think of some personal figure or something. But one night I became lucidly aware and decided to find out what I could about Saint Germain. And I came to this bridge where there was basically a guard, and I was lucidly aware. And he asked me, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I've come to meet Saint Germain." And he goes that he has to contact somebody to see if I'm allowed to go across the bridge. And on the other side of the bridge is kind of this weird kind of violet light color and all. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And finally, this gentleman came in a robe, kind of a violet robe, and told me that, yes, indeed, I could pass. And when I woke up, I decided to read up on Saint Germain, and he's connected to the violet light or the violet flame. And there were some other details that really surprised me that basically I came to discover in the lucid dream, and then I woke up and read about. So sometimes you can meet some interesting figures like that, but on occasion there's a gate or something that you have to get past to have that happen. Sometimes in lucid dreams, instead of interacting with a three-dimensional figure, you'll interact with light. And so you interact with a ball of light that's conversant or knowledgeable, and so that's really interesting. But yeah, there's all sorts of potential dream figures, I think, that are figures that a person could engage when they're lucidly aware.
Oh yeah, definitely. As you're speaking, I'm remembering, I believe it was the River Styx.
Right.
I was standing at the River Styx, and there was a soldier there guarding Like, she was a female, but she was armored. And she basically, the way that she looked at me when I showed up was like, what are you doing here?
Right.
You know, and I basically said to her, I've come to see somebody, and I gave the name of the person that I had come to see.
Yeah.
And she basically pointed in a direction, like she gave me passage, she pointed in a direction, and it was a Viking longship that was lying up on its side and split in two. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to see the person, and that's where they were.
Huh.
Yeah.
You know what? One thing I've found interesting about lucid dreamers talking about their interactions with deceased dream figures is oftentimes, especially if they've passed away for a number of years, oftentimes when you see them, they look much younger.
Yep.
Than they did when they passed. And for one example, my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, was mostly Scottish.
Oh.
And so when I'm in a lucid dream, I can tell when Ginny is there because she's the woman with the little pixies flying around her head, her hair.
Oh, that
right?
is so interesting. Yeah.
And so that's how, because she'll look like she's 35 years old, and I only knew her when she was like in her 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. And so I don't recognize her as a 35-year-old woman, but when I see, there's a woman with pixies flying around her hair, I know that's Grandma Jenny. And you'll see that with a number of lucid dream reports. People don't see them at the age they were when they passed. Oftentimes they see them at the age where they are their
prime.
In their prime, exactly.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You know what's really interesting about that your grandmother, the pixies flying around her. You know, I've had people say that to me. And there's pixies around you. Must be a Scottish thing.
Well, it's an interesting thing, a funny thing. But one thing that really kind of blew my mind in 2022, that the first dream of the year, so we're talking the morning of January 1st, I see my deceased mother-in-law. And I immediately become lucid because she passed away, 10, 12 years ago. And I started laughing because I think now after 10 or 12 years, she wants to come and talk to me. I can't believe it. This is funny. And of course, she looks about 40 years old, even though she passed away in her 80s. And she's wearing this pink dress that I can tell that she probably sewed herself. And because in waking life, she was did a lot of seamstress kind of work. But she comes up to me and she tells me, I want you to know that September will be a very significant month, or a very important month. And I started laughing with her and I said, well, if you believe that September is going to be important, I'm sure September will be important. And she shakes her head and looks at me and says, no, I want you to understand that September is going to be a very important month. And so that was the end of the lucid dream. But when I woke up, I realized, Nona is here from the land of the deceased, and I think she's telling me that my mom is going to pass away in September. And so now my mom, is in her mid-90s. Oh. And so I tell my wife, what I experienced and all. And the final week of August, the final weekend of August, my wife and I go down to visit my mom in my hometown, and my mom's doing just basically fine, and we have a lovely visit. And then the next weekend, she passes away. And so it's kind of, that's fine. But I think the important thing is sometimes the deceased have knowledge. It's hard for them to tell you directly that information. They can't say, your mom's going to pass away on September 5th or whatever.
Right.
But what they can do is kind of give you a heads up. And I've also seen this with other lucid dreamers who've told me stories where their deceased grandmother has come along and without would bring up a certain strange word, which is the name of a company that has stock. And the people said they thought it was so weird that just out of the blue, they said the name of this company. And then they realized, if I would have bought that stock on that day,
wow.
By the end of the year, it had tripled or something like that. But it was like the deceased couldn't tell them, flat out, buy this company. Instead, they could just kind of bring it up on the edge. Roundabout way. So, but it is curious when you can get information from the deceased that later you can confirm, or if it's something outside of your own knowing that they tell you and later you can confirm, then that really gives some evidence for visitation experiences.
Confirmation, yes. Yeah, and also you got to have a really nice weekend for your mom.
Oh, yeah. I was so happy. I mean, when you have that ability to, and I kind of realized that we were saying goodbye, but have that when she still has all her wits about her and all, it was really, really an important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, paying attention and remembering your dreams is important.
It's interesting. In ancient times, dreams were so important. They were really something that everyone paid attention to. And you got to realize way back then, you didn't have Netflix, you didn't have...
And that was coming up on the halfway mark for that interview. And I believe that we are coming up on a break here on Revolution Radio pretty soon, so I will wait until after the break to play the second half. But yeah, it's kind of cool, like to listen to it. I think if it was March 5th, 2023, so it's 2 years ago, that interview, and I think I maybe listened to part of it no long after it had been recorded, and I do have 30 minutes of it up on YouTube. But I thought it would be nice to play the whole interview. Like, that's Robert Waggoner, and he's been over 40 years, I believe, lucid dreaming, maybe even longer. And the first book that I had come across that he had written was Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, and that was released in 1929. And the second book that he had released was a collaboration, and it's Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple. And there's a lot of techniques and tips in this book, and it was written by Robert Waggoner and Caroline McCready, and I think that came out in 2015. And he also has the Lucid Dreaming magazine, which is a monthly magazine, and you can access it if you go to Robert Waggoner on Facebook. You can kind of join his Facebook and maybe sign up for his Lucid Dreaming magazine that comes out. It used to come out quarterly, but it changed to monthly. And the thing about that magazine is you can write in anonymously, like some of your dreams, or you can write in, tell them your name. But he publishes just regular people, their accounts, just like the listeners here, like that have had dreams. He publishes them, and it's got lots of little tips and stuff. And he has been giving workshops, and they probably find the information on his website. I saw maybe, I don't know how long ago, maybe a year and a half ago, he's been doing children's workshops, which I think is really, really good. And I think we should be coming up on a break here pretty soon. I think I have to confirm. There we go, we're on a break. So I will be back in about 5 minutes. So thank you for listening in. Be right back.